The grand ballroom of the Regency Hotel in Chicago shimmered under the glow of crystal chandeliers, their light fracturing into 1,000 prismatic sparks that danced across the polished marble floor. The air buzzed with the clink of champagne flutes, the rustle of silk gowns, and the low hum of self-important chatter. Chicago's elite had gathered for the annual Children's Hospital Charity Gala, their wealth and influence as tangible as the designer perfumes wafting through the room. Amid the opulence, a woman stood alone, her heart pounding as if it knew something she didn't. Sophia Patterson, a 28-year-old black woman with a cascade of tight curls framing her face, adjusted the simple red cocktail dress that clung to her curves and her only formal attire, bought secondhand for nights like this. She wasn't supposed to be here, not really. Not among the city's power brokers and socialites. But the freelance gig, as a sign language interpreter, had come with a paycheck she couldn't refuse, not when rent was overdue, and her student loans loomed like a storm cloud. Sophia's dark eyes scanned the room, her fingers fidgeting with the strap of her clutch. She was invisible here, a shadow in a sea of glittering excess. Her agency had been clear: blend in, be available, don't make a scene. But as she stood by the bar, sipping a glass of water to steady her nerves, a shiver ran down her spine. Something was wrong. Her gaze darted to the far corner of the ballroom, where a girl stood half hidden behind a sleek marble column. She was young, maybe 17, her midnight blue gown catching the light like a still lake under moonlight. Her posture was rigid, her shoulders tense, but her eyes sharp, intelligent and achingly alone, locked onto the crowd with a quiet intensity. Sophia's breath caught. She knew that look. The careful observation of lips, moving the subtle tilt of the head, the guarded stillness. The girl was deaf, and no one was talking to her. Sophia's heart twisted, a familiar ache from her years, working with deaf children at Chicago public schools, before budget cuts had stolen her stable job and pushed her into the precarious world of freelancing. She wanted to move to cross the room, but her feet felt anchored. What if she overstepped? What if this girl didn't want her help? Before she could decide, the ballroom erupted in a wave of excitement. Heads turned, voices hushed, and cameras flashed like lightning. Zachary Washington had arrived. He strode through the double doors, a tall, broad-shouldered man in his late 40s, his salt and pepper hair catching the light as confidently as his tailored tuxedo hugged his frame. His skin, a pale contrast to the deep navy of his suit, seemed to radiate authority. Zachary Washington, tech billionaire and CEO of Washington Tech, was the evening's honored guest. His company's millions had funded a new pediatric wing at the Children's Hospital, and the room buzzed with admiration and ambition. "Mr. Washington over here," a photographer called. "A moment for the Tribune," another shouted. Donors pressed forward, hands extended, smiles practiced. He shook them with a charm that seemed effortless. His green eyes sharp but distant, as if he were playing a role he'd mastered long ago. Sophia's gaze flickered back to the girl in the blue dress. She was watching him, her expression a tangled mix of pride and something heavier, resignation perhaps. Sophia's chest tightened. There was no mistaking it. This was Zachary Washington's daughter. The resemblance was subtle but undeniable. The same high cheekbones, the same intensity in their eyes. Yet while the room orbited around him, she stood alone, a forgotten satellite in his dazzling universe. "Why don't they see her?" Sophia murmured to herself, her voice barely audible over the din. She took a step forward, then stopped. Her agency's warning echoed in her mind. Don't make a scene. But the girl's isolation was a scene in itself, one that screamed louder than the chatter around her. Sophia's fingers twitched, itching to form the signs that could bridge the gap. She'd always been too involved, too quick to care. It was why she'd lost her school job, driving deaf kids home, when parents forgot them fighting for resources the district couldn't afford. "You need boundaries," her supervisor had said. But boundaries felt like betrayal when someone was hurting. The girl Olivia Sophia would later learn shifted slightly her eyes, darting to her father again. He didn't look back, not once. The crowd pressed closer to him, their laughter and flattery a wall between father and daughter. Sophia's resolve hardened. She couldn't stand by, not when she knew what it felt like to be unseen. Growing up in Englewood, she'd been the only black girl in her advanced classes, her hand raised but rarely called on, her voice drowned out by those who assumed she didn't belong. She wouldn't let this girl feel that same erasure. Taking a deep breath, Sophia wove through the crowd, her red dress a quiet rebellion against the sea of neutral tones. As she neared Olivia's eyes, widened a flicker of surprise breaking through her guarded expression. Sophia raised her hands, her movements fluid and deliberate. "Hello?" She signed her fingers, forming the greeting with the ease of someone who'd spent years perfecting it. "I'm Sophia. What's your name?" For a moment, Olivia froze, as if the world had tilted. Then her face transformed the mask of polite indifference, melting into a smile so bright it made Sophia's heart ache. "I'm Olivia." She signed back, her movements quick and graceful. "You know ASL? Are you deaf too?" Sophia shook her head, her curls bouncing slightly. "No, I'm an interpreter. I work with kids at the hospital sometimes." She paused, her eyes softening. "I saw you standing here alone. Thought you might like someone to talk to." Olivia's laugh was silent, but radiant, her hands dancing through the air. "God, yes. I've been watching lips all night until my eyes hurt. Do you know how many people here ask if I can read lips and then talk like I'm a toddler?" Sophia grinned, recognizing the frustration. "Oh, I know." Or they shout as if being deaf means you're slow. Exactly. Olivia's signs grew animated, her shoulders relaxing. Or they find out I'm deaf and start talking to whoever's with me like I've vanished. Poof, invisible girl. Sophia laughed, but her heart twisted again. "You're not invisible." She signed, her voice soft, but firm. "Not to me." Olivia's smile faltered, a flicker of vulnerability crossing her face. "You're the first person tonight who's noticed." The words hung between them, heavy with truth. Sophia wanted to say more, to ask why Olivia was so alone, but the crowd shifted again, drawing her attention. Zachary Washington was moving closer, his entourage trailing like planets around a sun. Olivia's gaze followed him, her expression tightening. "That's my dad." She signed, her hands slower now, tinged with bitterness. Always the star of the show. Sophia watched as Zachary worked the room, his charm effortless but cold. He didn't glance at his daughter, didn't acknowledge her presence. The realization hit Sophia like a punch. He wasn't just ignoring her. He was choosing not to see her. "Does he sign?" she asked, already knowing the answer. Olivia's hands stilled, her eyes darkening. "No, never has. We have interpreters at home, strangers, who talk for me. He speaks to them, not me, even in our own house." Sophia's stomach churned. How could a man with the world at his feet fail so completely at reaching his own child? She wanted to march over to him, to demand answers. But Olivia's voice, silent but piercing, stopped her. "It's always been like this." Olivia signed, her fingers sharp with resignation. "Since Mom died, since I lost my hearing." Sophia's breath caught. "I'm so sorry." She signed, her hands gentle. How long ago was that? When I was 7, Olivia replied, her movements slowing. Car accident. Mom was a violinist. She taught me to feel music through vibrations through her smile when she played. After she was gone, everything went quiet. Dad buried himself in work, and I became the problem. The word problem hit Sophia like a stone. She opened her mouth to respond, but a shadow fell over them. Zachary Washington stood a few feet away, his assistant at his side, a photographer hovering. "Olivia," he said, his voice loud and deliberate, as if volume could bridge the gap his hands refused to. "We need you for photos." He didn't look at Sophia, didn't acknowledge her existence. Olivia's face smoothed into a practiced mask, but before she turned to follow, she signed quickly. "See what I mean? He doesn't even ask who you are." As Olivia walked away, her blue dress trailing like a fading dream, Sophia felt a fire ignite in her chest. This wasn't just about a girl being ignored. It was about a father who'd built an empire but couldn't build a bridge to his own daughter. She didn't know how, but she knew she couldn't let this go. Not when Olivia's eyes had lit up for the first time all night. Not when Sophia had seen a spark of hope in a girl who deserved so much more. The gala swirled on, oblivious to the silent drama unfolding in its shadows. Sophia stood rooted, her mind racing. She could walk away, do her job, and keep her head down, or she could take a risk, one that might cost her everything. The choice wasn't easy, but it was clear. If you've ever felt invisible, if you've ever longed for someone to truly see you, then you know why Sophia couldn't turn away. Join her on this journey, where words are silent, but hearts speak loudest, and discover what happens when one voice dares to break through the noise. The air in the Regency Hotel's ballroom felt heavier now, as if the weight of Olivia's words had settled into the spaces between the clinking glasses and hollow laughter. Sophia Patterson stood by the marble column where she'd first approached Olivia, her fingers still tingling from the signs they'd exchanged. The girl's smile, so bright, so fleeting, lingered in her mind like a melody she couldn't shake. Olivia had vanished into the crowd, drawn away by her father's command for photos, her blue dress swallowed by the sea of tailored suits and sparkling gowns. Sophia's heart thudded, a mix of anger and resolve. She'd seen too many kids like Olivia in her years, as an interpreter, isolated, misunderstood, their voices trapped in a world that refused to listen. But this was different. This was personal. She scanned the room, her eyes catching on Zachary Washington. He stood at the center of a cluster of donors, his smile polished but distant, his hands gesturing with the ease of a man who commanded boardrooms and headlines. Yet he hadn't spared a single glance for his daughter, hadn't noticed the way her shoulders slumped as she stood for the cameras, a prop in his carefully curated image. Sophia's jaw tightened. How could someone so powerful be so blind? She wanted to storm over to shake him out of his self-absorbed orbit, but the weight of her own precarious situation held her back. She was a freelancer scraping by on gigs like this. One wrong move, and she'd be out of work, her dreams of making a difference buried under bills and broken promises. "Sophia." A voice cut through her thoughts, sharp and impatient. It was her agency coordinator, Marla, a wiry woman with a clipboard and a perpetual frown. "You're supposed to be circulating, not hiding in corners. We're paying you to be available." "I'm right here," Sophia said, forcing a smile. "No one's needed me yet." Marla's eyes narrowed. "Then, make yourself useful. Mingle. Look professional." She turned on her heel, leaving Sophia with a sting of irritation. Professional. As if standing silent while a girl like Olivia faded into the background was professional. She took a sip of her water, the glass cool against her lips, and let her gaze drift back to the corner where Olivia had stood. The space was empty now, but the girl's words echoed. He speaks to them, not me, even in our own house. Sophia's fingers twitched, itching to sign to do something. She wove through the crowd, her red dress a quiet defiance against the muted elegance around her. The ballroom pulsed with energy, laughter, clinking glasses, the occasional burst of applause as Zachary's name was mentioned in a toast. But Sophia's focus was singular. She found Olivia near the edge of the room, standing dutifully beside a photographer, her smile as practiced as her father's. The camera flashed, capturing her like a porcelain doll, perfect but lifeless. Sophia's chest ached. She knew that look, the one you wore when you'd learned to hide your heart. As the photographer moved on, Olivia's mask slipped. She glanced around, her eyes searching, and when they landed on Sophia, a spark of relief flickered. Sophia didn't hesitate. She crossed the room, her steps steady, despite the butterflies in her stomach. "Hey," she signed, her hands moving with a warmth that belied her nerves. "You okay?" Olivia's shoulders relaxed, her fingers quick and expressive. "Barely. These photos are the worst. I'm just a decoration for Dad's big night." Sophia frowned, her hands hovering before she signed. "You're more than that. You know that, right?" Olivia's laugh was silent, a quick exhale that didn't reach her eyes. "Tell that to everyone else. They see Zachary Washington's daughter, not me." Her signs slowed, tinged with a bitterness that made Sophia's heart twist. "I'm supposed to stand here, smile, and let them talk about how generous he is. Meanwhile, I'm screaming inside, and no one hears. I hear you." Sophia signed, her movements deliberate, her eyes locked on Olivia's. "I see you." For a moment, Olivia's guard dropped completely. Her eyes glistened, and she signed, "You're the only one who has all night." The vulnerability in her expression was raw, like a wound exposed to air. Sophia wanted to reach out to hug her, but she held back, knowing the power of words, signed or spoken, could be enough. "Tell me something real," Sophia signed, leaning closer. "Something that's yours, not your dad's." Olivia hesitated, her hands hovering. Then, with a spark of defiance, she signed, "I paint. It's the only time I feel like I'm saying something. My art. It's my voice." Her fingers moved faster now, alive with passion. "I go to Lincoln Academy. They have a deaf program, but I don't fit in. The hearing kids think I'm some spoiled rich girl, and the deaf kids think I don't get their struggles because of who my dad is. But when I paint, none of that matters. It's just me and the canvas." Sophia's lips curved into a smile. "I'd love to see your work sometime. What do you paint?" "Everything," Olivia signed, her eyes lighting up. "Feelings mostly. Things I can't say out loud, like how it felt when Mom died, or how it feels to be in a room full of people who don't see me. I use colors to scream what I can't." She paused, her hands stilling. "I'm pretty good, actually. Got into Harvard's visual arts program." Harvard. Sophia's hands froze, impressed. "That's incredible. You must be so proud." Olivia's smile faltered. "I am. But Dad, he thinks art's a hobby. He wants me to do business like him, something practical." Her signs grew sharp, slicing through the air. "He doesn't get it. He doesn't get me." Sophia's heart sank. She glanced across the room at Zachary, who was laughing with a group of suited men, his charisma filling the space. How could he miss this? His daughter was a fire burning bright with talent and pain, and he was too busy basking in his own light to notice. "Have you tried showing him your art?" She signed, her voice gentle but firm. "Maybe it could say what words can't." Olivia's hands hesitated, her expression torn between hope and doubt. I've tried. He looks, but he doesn't see. He's always too busy running Washington Tech. It's like, since Mom died, I'm just a problem he can't fix. Her fingers trembled slightly, betraying the weight of her words. She was a violinist. She taught me to feel music through the floor, through her hands on mine. After the accident, it all stopped. Dad stopped. I stopped being his daughter and became his burden. Sophia's throat tightened. She wanted to say something profound, something to ease the ache in Olivia's eyes. But before she could, a shadow loomed. Zachary's assistant, a sharp-eyed woman in a black blazer, approached. "Olivia," she said, her voice clipped, "your father needs you for another photo op. Let's go." Olivia's face smoothed into that practiced mask again, but she turned to Sophia, her hands quick and urgent. "Don't go anywhere, okay? You're the only real person here." Before Sophia could respond, Olivia was whisked away, her blue dress fading into the crowd once more. Sophia stood frozen, her heart pounding. Olivia's words echoed in her mind. "You're the only real person here." She felt the weight of that trust, the fragility of it. She'd crossed a line tonight, stepping into a world that wasn't hers, but she couldn't walk away now. Not when Olivia's silent screams were louder than the gala's noise. She glanced at Zachary, still oblivious, still untouchable. A fire sparked in her chest, not just anger, but determination. She didn't know how, but she was going to make him see his daughter. Not the prop, not the problem, but the brilliant, hurting, extraordinary girl who deserved to be heard. The office of Zachary Washington's Lake Forest estate was a cathedral of glass and steel, its vast windows framing the restless waves of Lake Michigan. Sophia Patterson stood at the threshold, her heart a tangled knot of defiance and uncertainty. The air felt charged, as if the room itself held its breath, waiting for the words that would shift the course of everything. Zachary stood behind his desk, his silhouette sharp against the gray Chicago sky, his green eyes studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. The housekeeper had left them alone, the door clicking shut with a finality that echoed in Sophia's chest. She braced herself, expecting a reprimand, a cold dismissal for her audacity on the terrace the night before. But Zachary's first words caught her off guard. "Miss Patterson," he said, his voice low, almost hesitant. "I owe you an apology." Sophia blinked, her fingers tightening around the strap of her purse. "An apology," she echoed, her voice steadier than she felt. "For what exactly?" He moved to the window, his hands clasped behind his back, as if the view of the lake could anchor him. "Last night you said things that were inappropriate for the setting." He paused, his jaw tightening, "but not untrue. I've been failing my daughter in ways I didn't want to see. You made me see." Sophia's breath caught. She hadn't expected this vulnerability from a man who seemed carved from marble, untouchable in his wealth and power. She stepped forward, her heels sinking into the plush rug. "Mr. Washington," I spoke out of turn. "I shouldn't have." "No," he interrupted, turning to face her. His eyes were raw, unguarded, a storm of regret and resolve. "You were right to say it." Olivia was alone in that room, surrounded by people who should have seen her, including me. He gestured to a chair across from his desk. "Please sit." Sophia hesitated, then sank into the leather seat, her mind racing. She'd come prepared for a fight, not a confession. Zachary sat opposite her, his hands flat on the desk as if grounding himself for what came next. "Olivia lost her hearing when she was 7. He said, his voice steady but heavy. "A car accident. My wife Elizabeth was killed. I was driving." The words landed like a stone in still water, rippling through the silence. Sophia's heart clenched, but she stayed quiet, letting him continue. It was winter black ice on the road. A truck jackknifed ahead of us. I swerved to avoid it, but we hit a guardrail. Elizabeth died instantly. Olivia was in the back seat. The impact. It damaged her auditory nerves. Permanent, they said. Irreversible. Sophia's throat tightened. She thought of Olivia's trembling signs, the way she'd described becoming a problem after her mother's death. "I'm so sorry," she said softly, her hands itching to sign the words, though she kept them still. Zachary's gaze dropped to the desk, where a framed photo sat a younger version of him smiling, beside a radiant woman with warm eyes and a small beaming girl. Elizabeth was a violinist. He said, his voice softer now, almost reverent. She taught Olivia to feel music through vibrations, through touch. She believed in communication in every form. She even started teaching Olivia sign language as a baby sign, she called it. After the accident, I couldn't. He trailed off his fingers, brushing the edge of the frame. I couldn't face it. I threw myself into work, into Washington Tech. I hired interpreters, specialists, anyone I thought could fix what I'd broken. You didn't break her, Sophia said, her voice firm, but gentle. Olivia's not broken. Zachary's eyes met hers, a flicker of pain crossing his face. I know that now. But back then, I couldn't accept that she'd never hear again. I sent her to boarding schools, elite programs for deaf children in Boston, New York. I thought they'd give her what I couldn't, a community, a chance to thrive. Instead, I pushed her away. He leaned back, his composure fraying. Last night when you spoke to her, I saw her face light up in a way I haven't seen in years. And when you called me out, I realized I've been a coward. Sophia's chest ached, not just for Olivia, but for the man before her, drowning in guilt he'd carried for a decade. She leaned forward, her voice steady. Mr. Washington, you can't change the past, but you can change what comes next. Why did you ask me here? He straightened, his businessman's resolve snapping back into place. I want to hire you, Miss Patterson, not through your agency directly, to teach me sign language. I want to talk to my daughter, to understand her without strangers between us. He named a figure for her compensation, so staggering it made her breath catch. Would that interest you? Sophia's mind spun. The money would solve her problems. Rent, loans, the constant scramble to survive. But this wasn't about money. It was about Olivia, about the girl who'd painted her pain into colors and needed her father to see them. It's not just about signing, she said, her voice quiet but firm. Learning ASL takes time, commitment. But rebuilding your relationship with Olivia, that's harder. It's not a business deal you can close in a few weeks. I know, Zachary said, his eyes unwavering. I'm prepared to do whatever it takes. I've spent 10 years failing her. I don't want to waste another day. Sophia studied him, searching for sincerity. Beneath his polished exterior, she saw cracks. Grief, regret, a desperate need to make things right. But she also saw the risk. Taking this job meant stepping deeper into a world that wasn't hers. A world where one misstep could cost her everything. She thought of her own struggles, the nights spent wondering if she'd ever make a difference, the kids she'd fought for, only to lose her job. Yet Olivia's face, bright with hope for those fleeting moments at the gala, pulled at her heart. I'll do it, she said finally, her voice steady. But I need you to understand something. This isn't just about you learning to sign. It's about learning to listen, to really see Olivia for who she is. Zachary nodded, a flicker of relief crossing his face. "I understand, or at least I'm trying to." He stood, extending a hand. "Thank you, Miss Patterson. I'll have my assistant arrange our first session." Sophia shook his hand, her grip firm, but her mind was already elsewhere. She thought of Olivia's paintings, the way they screamed what her voice couldn't. She thought of the accident, the loss that had fractured this family, and the long road ahead to mend it. As she left the office, passing the vibrant canvas of cobalt and gold in the hallway, Olivia's work, a burst of life in a sterile mansion, she felt a spark of hope. But hope was fragile, and she knew the real work was just beginning. Outside, the lake churned under a heavy sky, mirroring the storm of emotions within her. She'd taken a leap not just for Olivia, but for herself. This wasn't just a job, it was a chance to bridge a gap that had been widening for a decade. But as she drove away from the estate, a nagging doubt lingered. Could a man like Zachary Washington, who'd built an empire on control, truly learn to let go of his guilt and embrace his daughter's world? And could she, with her own scars and struggles, be the one to guide him there? The answers lay ahead, hidden in the silent language of hands and hearts, waiting to be uncovered. The late autumn light filtered through the tall windows of the Lincoln Academy's art gallery, casting a soft glow over the polished wood floors and vibrant canvases. Sophia Patterson stood near the entrance, her heart fluttering with a mix of anticipation and nerves. The air buzzed with the chatter of students and parents, the faint scent of paint mingling with the crisp bite of Chicago's October breeze. She smoothed her emerald green dress, chosen to honor Olivia Washington's fiery spirit, and scanned the room for her friend. Their meetings at a cozy cafe near the academy had become a ritual. Over the past few weeks, quiet afternoons, where Olivia's hands danced through stories of art and solitude, each sign revealing a piece of her guarded heart. Tonight was different, though. Tonight was Olivia's senior art showcase, a moment for her to shine, and Sophia felt a quiet pride swelling in her chest. She spotted Olivia across the gallery, adjusting a canvas with meticulous care. Her midnight blue dress shimmered under the lights, her movements graceful, but tinged with a nervous energy. Sophia approached, her hands lifting in a warm greeting. Nervous, she signed, a teasing smile playing on her lips. Olivia's eyes sparkled, but her hands betrayed a slight tremble. Terrified, she signed back her smile, wavering. What if they hate it? What if he hates it? Her gaze flicked toward the entrance, as if expecting her father, Zachary Washington, to appear at any moment. "He'll see you tonight." Sophia signed, her movements steady and reassuring. "Your art speaks louder than words. Let it do the talking." Olivia nodded, but doubt lingered in her eyes. She gestured to the centerpiece of her display, a large canvas titled "After Silence." Sophia's breath caught as she took it in. The painting was a storm of emotion. The left side, a chaotic swirl of crimson and black jagged lines, evoking pain and loss. The right side, a gradual bloom of blues and golds, a quiet order emerging from the wreckage. Hidden in the chaos were faint fragmented words, violin, laughter, traces of a world Olivia had lost. In the golden half, delicate outlines of hands formed sign language, a testament to the new language she'd claimed. "It's about the accident," Olivia signed, her hands slow, almost reverent. The moment everything changed. The silence that came after, and what I found in it. Sophia's throat tightened. The painting wasn't just art. It was Olivia's soul laid bare, a cry for understanding in a world that had turned its back. "It's breathtaking," she signed, her eyes tracing every stroke. "You've turned pain into something beautiful." Olivia's smile was small but genuine, I hope he sees it. She signed her hands, hesitating. He's coming tonight. He always shows up for school events, donations to make hands to shake. But he never really looks. Before Sophia could respond, a murmur rippled through the gallery. Heads turned, voices hushed. Zachary Washington had arrived. His tailored suit cut a sharp silhouette against the soft lighting, his presence commanding the room as effortlessly as it had at the gala weeks ago. The headmaster hurried to greet him, steering him toward a cluster of student works with practiced deference. Olivia's shoulders stiffened, her expression clouding. See, she signed her hands sharp with resignation. Always the benefactor, never the father. Sophia's heart sank, but she kept her eyes on Zachary. He followed the headmaster, nodding politely at the displays, but something in his posture shifted as they neared Olivia's section. His steps slowed, his gaze locking onto after silence. The headmaster faltered, clearly surprised, as Zachary broke away from the guided tour and walked straight to his daughter's work. Sophia's pulse quickened. She signed quickly to Olivia. He's coming this way. Olivia straightened her face, a mask of guarded hope. Zachary stopped before the canvas, his eyes tracing its lines with an intensity Sophia hadn't seen before. The gallery seemed to hold its breath, the chatter fading to a distant hum. Sophia watched his face, searching for a sign, anger, indifference, anything. Instead, she saw something raw, a flicker of recognition as he read the title. Then, in a moment that stole the air from her lungs, Zachary raised his hands. Slowly, deliberately, he signed, "These are beautiful. I'm proud of you." Olivia froze, her hands suspended midair, her eyes wide with shock. The signs were simple, almost clumsy, but they carried a weight that filled the room. Sophia's heart pounded, her own hands trembling as she watched. Olivia's lips parted, her breath hitching, and then, with fingers that shook with emotion, she signed back, "Thank you." The exchange was brief, a fragile thread stretched across a decade of distance, but it was electric. Sophia saw the shift in Olivia's eyes, a spark of hope tempered by years of disappointment. Zachary's face softened, his usually guarded expression cracking to reveal something tender, something real. The crowd around them began to murmur again, oblivious to the seismic shift unfolding before the canvas. Sophia felt a lump in her throat, a mix of pride and fear. This was a beginning, but beginnings were fragile, and she knew the road ahead was far from smooth. Olivia's art teacher approached, pulling her away to speak with a group of attendees, her reluctance clear in the set of her shoulders. Zachary remained by the painting, his eyes still fixed on after silence. Sophia hesitated, then stepped closer, her voice soft. "You didn't tell me she was this talented," she said, echoing their conversation from weeks ago. Zachary glanced at her, a wry smile tugging at his lips. "You did, actually. I just wasn't listening." He gestured to the canvas. It's more than talent. It's her heart, isn't it? All the things she couldn't say." Sophia nodded, her gaze returning to the painting. "She's been trying to reach you through her art for years. It's her voice when she feels unheard." He exhaled, a sound heavy with regret. "I've been a fool, haven't I?" His voice was low, almost a confession. "I thought I was protecting her funding programs, building wings for deaf education. But I missed this. I missed her." Sophia's chest ached at the admission, but before she could respond, the gallery lights dimmed, signaling the start of the formal presentation. The headmaster took the podium, his voice booming with practiced warmth. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight to celebrate our students' remarkable talents." His eyes flicked to Zachary, a nod of acknowledgement. We're especially grateful to Mr. Zachary Washington, whose generosity has supported our arts program and made this evening possible." The crowd applauded, but Sophia's attention was on Olivia, who stood across the room, her expression unreadable. The headmaster continued, his tone brightening. "Tonight, we're thrilled to announce the recipient of the Elizabeth Washington Memorial Scholarship for Excellence in Visual Arts established by Mr. Washington in honor of his late wife." Sophia's breath caught her eyes darting to Olivia. The girl's face had gone pale, her hands clenched at her sides. This was news to her, news that carried the weight of her mother's name unshared until this moment. The headmaster's voice rose with pride. "This scholarship, offering a year of study at the Paris Institute of Fine Arts, goes to a student whose work demonstrates unparalleled emotional depth and skill. Please join me in congratulating Miss Olivia Washington." The room erupted in applause, but Olivia didn't move. Her eyes locked onto her father, a storm of emotions. Shock, confusion, and something sharper flashing across her face. Sophia's heart sank. This wasn't a celebration for Olivia. It was a decision made without her, another wall between father and daughter. As the crowd waited for her to approach the podium, Olivia turned and slipped out of the gallery, her blue dress vanishing into the shadows. Zachary's face tightened, his earlier warmth replaced by a flicker of panic. He stepped forward, addressing the crowd with a smoothness that belied his tension. "Thank you for your patience. My daughter is understandably overwhelmed. If you'll excuse me." He followed her path, leaving whispers in his wake. Sophia hesitated only a moment before going after them, her heart racing. Whatever happened next, she knew it would break or mend the fragile thread they'd begun to weave. The gallery's lights flickered, but the real drama was unfolding beyond its walls, in the silent space where words had failed and hearts were fighting to be heard. The dim hallway of Lincoln Academy stretched before Sophia Patterson like a tunnel into a storm. Her heels echoed against the polished floor, each step a pulse, matching the frantic rhythm of her heart. The gallery's applause faded behind her, replaced by the weight of what was unfolding. Olivia Washington had fled the showcase, her blue dress a fleeting shadow after the headmaster's announcement of the Elizabeth Washington Memorial Scholarship, a prize bearing her mother's name sprung on her without warning. Zachary Washington had followed his face, a mask of controlled panic, and Sophia couldn't stay behind, not when the air crackled with the unspoken pain of a decade ready to erupt. She found them in an empty classroom, the door ajar, fluorescent lights casting stark shadows. Olivia stood by a window, her hands flying in furious signs, her face a storm of betrayal and grief. Zachary stood opposite, his broad shoulders tense, his eyes wide with helplessness as he struggled to follow her rapid movements. Sophia slipped inside her presence unnoticed. At first, the tension between father and daughter, a living thing that filled the room. Olivia's signs were sharp, slicing through the air. "How could you?" She signed, her fingers trembling with rage. "Using Mom's name like that without telling me. Deciding my future without asking." Zachary's jaw tightened, his hands hovering uselessly. "I can't understand you when you sign that fast," he said, his voice low, almost pleading. He turned to Sophia, his eyes catching hers. "What's she saying?" Sophia stepped forward, her heart aching for them both. She signed as she spoke, her voice steady despite the knot in her chest. "She's upset that you created a scholarship in her mother's name without discussing it with her, and that you're making decisions about her future, like sending her to Paris, without her input." Zachary's face hardened, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of guilt. "I thought you'd be pleased," he said, addressing Olivia directly, though his words felt hollow, without signs. "This is a prestigious opportunity. Paris is... I don't want Paris. Olivia's signs were vehement, her hands cutting through the air as Sophia translated aloud. I've been accepted to Harvard. I've planned this for years, and you just decide I should spend a year abroad instead. Harvard will still be there after. That's not the point. Olivia interrupted her signs, so forceful, they seemed to shake the room. You've done this my whole life, decided what's best for me without asking what I want. You sent me to boarding schools, shipped me off when it was convenient. First Boston, now Paris. It's always about control. Zachary flinched as if her words were a physical blow. Those schools were to give you the best education possible. He said, his voice strained. For your situation. My situation. Olivia's eyes flashed her signs sharp as knives. You mean my deafness, or the fact that you couldn't look at me after Mom died? The accusation hung in the air, raw and unyielding. Sophia translated faithfully, her voice soft but clear, though her heart ached with every word. That's not true. Zachary said, his voice hollow, his hands clenching at his sides. I was trying to protect you. Protect me. Olivia's hands trembled, tears glistening in her eyes. You sent me away for 9 years, Dad. 9 years. You showed up on parent weekends with interpreters and fake smiles, then disappeared again. Do you know what it felt like? To be 7, suddenly deaf. My mother gone and my father abandoning me too. Sophia's throat tightened, her hands moving with care to convey the depth of Olivia's pain. Zachary's composure cracked his eyes, glistening with something dangerously close to tears. I was trying to give you what I couldn't, he said, his voice breaking. I couldn't understand what you were going through, Olivia. Every time you tried to tell me something, and I couldn't follow. Every time you cried, and I couldn't comfort you. It was like losing you all over again. The words hung in the silence, heavy with a decade of suppressed grief. Olivia's hands slowed, her anger wavering as she studied her father's face. So instead of learning to talk to me, she signed her movements deliberate. Now you sent me away and threw money at it. Schools, specialists, interpreters, anything but facing me. Zachary didn't respond immediately. He looked at her, really looked as if seeing her for the first time in years. I know how it looks, he said quietly, his voice raw. But I didn't send you away because I didn't want you. I sent you away because I was terrified of failing you worse by keeping you with me. Failing me worse than abandonment. Olivia's signs were softer now, tinged with old grief. I needed my father, not schools or strangers, just you. Zachary moved toward her, then stopped, uncertainty etched in every line of his body. I didn't know how to be what you needed, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. After Elizabeth died, I was broken, drowning in guilt, barely functioning. I thought those schools would give you a community I couldn't. I thought I was doing what was best. Olivia's eyes searched his, her tears spilling over. You didn't try? She signed, her hands trembling. You could have learned to sign, could have stayed. Instead, we became strangers. You're right, Zachary said, his voice cracking. I took the coward's way out. And when you came home at 15, I didn't know how to bridge that gap. I still don't. He paused, then took a tentative step closer. But I'm trying now. That's why I'm learning to sign, to reach you. A long silence stretched between them, filled with the weight of missed years and unspoken love. Olivia's hands hovered, as if unsure whether to push him away or pull him closer. Finally, she signed, her movements slow and deliberate. The scholarship. Did you really create it for Mom? Zachary nodded, his eyes soft with memory. She believed art could heal what nothing else could touch. She'd be so proud of you, Olivia. Your talent. It's her light in you. Olivia's expression softened, but her hands pressed on. Then why Paris? Why now? He looked at the floor, then back at her, his voice thick with honesty. I saw your Harvard acceptance letter. I realized you'd be leaving soon, and I've already missed so much. Part of me thought, if you were in Paris, I'd have another year to learn how to talk to you before you were gone. The admission hung in the air, raw and vulnerable. Olivia's eyes widened, a flicker of understanding breaking through her pain. You thought I'd disappear after high school. She signed, her voice a mix of hurt and hope. I wouldn't have blamed you, Zachary said softly. I haven't been the father you deserved. Olivia studied him, her tears falling freely now. I don't want Paris. She signed, her hands gentle but firm. Harvard's my dream. But maybe we could go to Paris together someday. Mom always wanted to take me there. Zachary's eyes glistened, a rare crack in his stoic facade. I'd like that, he said, his voice thick. Hesitantly, he raised his hands, his signs slow but deliberate. I'm sorry I failed you. I love you, Olivia. Olivia's breath hitched, her hands frozen, as she watched her father's fingers form the words she'd waited a decade to see. Tears streamed down her cheeks, and she stepped forward, wrapping her arms around him in a fierce embrace. Zachary held her tightly, his eyes closing as if to hold on to the moment. Over her shoulder, he mouthed a silent thank you to Sophia, his face raw with gratitude. Sophia slipped quietly toward the door, her heart swelling with a bittersweet ache. She'd witnessed something sacred, a fracture beginning to heal, a father and daughter, finding each other in the silence. As she stepped back into the hallway, the faint hum of the gallery's chatter reached her, but it felt distant, insignificant. The real story was here, in the trembling hands and tear-streaked faces, where love was finally learning to speak. The late spring sun bathed the Lincoln Academy's auditorium in a golden glow, its warmth spilling through arched windows and across rows of proud families. Sophia Patterson sat in the audience, her heart a quiet drumbeat of anticipation. The air buzzed with the soft hum of celebration. Graduation day, a milestone etched in smiles and tears. On stage, Olivia Washington stood radiant in her cap and gown, her hands moving with grace as she delivered her valedictorian address in sign language. A professional interpreter voiced her words for the hearing audience, but Sophia's eyes were fixed on Olivia's hands, each sign a testament to a journey from silence to strength. The auditorium was a far cry from the glittering chaos of the Regency Hotel's ballroom, where they'd first met, yet the memory of that night lingered, a spark that had ignited this moment. Olivia's speech wove a tapestry of resilience and connection, her signs fluid and deliberate. In a world that often hears only what's spoken, she signed, her eyes shining with quiet conviction. I've learned that the truest conversations happen in silence, in art, in gestures, in the courage to reach across divides. Her gaze drifted to the front row, where Zachary Washington sat, his face alight with pride. My mother taught me that beauty exists even in what we cannot hear. My father taught me that love can learn to speak no matter how long it takes. Sophia's throat tightened, her fingers brushing away a tear. She glanced at Zachary, who watched his daughter with an intensity that spoke of months of transformation. The man who'd once been a distant star in Olivia's orbit now leaned forward, his hands subtly mimicking her signs, a quiet echo of her words. The distance between them had closed, not just in the language they now shared, but in the unspoken understanding that had grown since that raw night in the classroom. Sophia felt a swell of satisfaction, knowing she'd played a part in stitching their fractured bond back together. As the ceremony ended, The auditorium erupted in applause, graduates tossing their caps into the air like confetti. Olivia descended the stage, her smile radiant as she navigated the crowd to find Sophia. "You made it." She signed her hands quick with excitement, her eyes sparkling like the lake under moonlight. "Wouldn't miss it." Sophia signed back, pulling Olivia into a warm hug. "You were incredible up there." Olivia's grin widened, but her hands moved with a hint of mischief. "Wait till you see what we've got planned." She nodded toward Zachary, who approached with a rare, unguarded smile. The sight of him, once so imposing, now softened by a quiet joy, made Sophia's heart lift. He carried a phone in one hand, his other hand signing a clumsy but earnest hello as he reached them. "We have something to show you," he said, his voice warm, as he handed Sophia the phone. The screen displayed a gallery of photos, a sunlit studio filled with easels, paints, and canvases, its windows overlooking the shimmering expanse of Lake Michigan. "We turned the East Wing's sunroom into Olivia's studio," he explained, his hands attempting a few signs as he spoke. "She'll use it when she's home from Harvard." Sophia's eyes widened, her fingers tracing the images. The studio was a haven, vibrant and alive, a stark contrast to the sterile elegance of the Washington estate. "It's perfect," she signed, her voice soft with awe. "Olivia, this is your space." Olivia's hands danced with pride. "It's more than that. Tell her dad." Zachary's smile deepened, a warmth in his eyes that Sophia hadn't seen before. "We've started the Elizabeth Washington Foundation for Deaf Education and the Arts," he said, his signs more fluid than they'd been months ago. "It'll fund art therapy programs, sign language classes, and scholarships for deaf students across Chicago. Every staff member will learn ASL, no exceptions." Olivia's hands flew, her excitement infectious. "We're hosting a summer art camp for deaf kids too. They'll get to paint, sculpt, create whatever speaks to them, like I did." Sophia's heart swelled, her eyes flicking between father and daughter. The foundation wasn't just a gesture. It was a commitment, a bridge to a community Olivia had longed for, and Zachary had once failed to understand. "That's incredible," she signed, her voice catching. "You're building something real. We want you to be part of it," Zachary said, his tone earnest. "As our program director, you've shown us what it means to truly see someone. Who better to lead this?" Olivia's hands moved quickly, her eyes bright. "You're the one who taught us communication isn't just signs, it's about connection. Say yes, Sophia, please." Sophia froze, her breath hitching. The offer was a lifeline, a chance to do the work she'd always dreamed of, work that could change lives, like she'd tried to do before budget cuts stole her stability. But it was more than that. It was a chance to be part of something bigger, to stand beside Olivia and Zachary as they rebuilt not just their family, but a legacy of understanding. She looked at Olivia, whose hopeful gaze mirrored the spark from their first meeting, and at Zachary, whose quiet determination spoke of a man who'd learned to listen. "I'm in." She signed, her voice steady but thick with emotion. "I'd be honored." Olivia let out a silent cheer, her hands clapping in excitement, and pulled Sophia into another hug. Zachary's smile widened, his eyes glistening with something that looked like gratitude. "Thank you." He signed, the gesture simple but heartfelt. "For everything." As they stood together amid the celebrating crowd, Sophia felt a sense of completion, like a brushstroke finishing a canvas. The journey that had begun in the glittering chaos of the Regency Hotel had led here to a moment where silence was no longer a barrier, but a space for connection. She thought of Olivia's painting After Silence, its chaotic reds giving way to golden blues, and saw it reflected in this moment, a family emerging from pain into something whole. They moved outside where the campus bloomed with spring flowers, their petals catching the sunlight. Olivia pointed to a nearby courtyard where students were already setting up easels for a post-ceremony art display. "Come see," she signed, tugging Sophia's hand. The display featured works by deaf students, vibrant canvases bursting with color and emotion. One painting caught Sophia's eye, a smaller version of After Silence, its colors softer but no less powerful. "I made it for the camp," Olivia signed, her smile shy. "To show kids they can speak even in silence." Zachary stood beside them, his hands signing a halting but sincere, "Beautiful." Olivia's eyes lit up, and she signed back, "Thanks, Dad." The exchange was small, but it carried the weight of a decade's worth of healing. Sophia watched them, her heart full, knowing this was only the beginning. The foundation, the studio, the camp, they were seeds planted in the wake of pain, ready to grow into something extraordinary. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the courtyard, Sophia felt a quiet certainty settle over her. She'd come to this city fighting to be seen, to make a difference in a world that often overlooked the silent. Now standing with Olivia and Zachary, she knew she'd found her place, not just as a teacher or an interpreter, but as a bridge, helping hearts find each other in the spaces words couldn't reach. The future stretched before them, painted in hues of hope and possibility, a canvas waiting for their next stroke.